Why is it that I am always gripping onto the thing that makes me unhappy? What is it about this campaign? I call it the campaign of misery.
So what had happened for me, I was kind of just like, I'm sick of feeling this pain, this stuckness, this breakdown pattern that I'd continued to repeat and that I was fully responsible for in choosing certain relationships out of integrity and out of alignment of values and all these different things, and then staying. And I was finally like, okay, I need to find a solution to this pain. And so I found a coach that does a lot of therapy and healing work. And I just said, I'm going to invest in 6 months. I'm going to pay in advance, and I'm going to commit to my intention of finding the solution. I'm going to do the work. And I think that's step one, is being like clear of your intention that you want to find a solution to whatever's causing you any type of pain or stuckness in any area of your life. Then I went all in on just being as real and authentic and vulnerable as possible. And no one wants to suffer. No one. Yeah. It's interesting. I was just interviewing a guy before this today, and I said on a scale of 1 to 10 of your inner peace and self-love scale, 10 being you love yourself, you have a lot of inner peace, 1 being you hate yourself, no love. Where are you? He said, I'm a 5.
Wow.
And I said, and this is a guy with a massive company, extremely fit, shredded, like people around him, but internally a 5. And it goes back to what you talked about. I love the intro, which is a happy, healthy, and healed.
Yeah.
Healing, which is, I said, why do you think you're a 5? And he said, I haven't dealt with the inner stuff. I've dealt with the mental side of discipline and structure and organization and working hard and grinding. But the emotional side of healing your heart, I believe, is the game.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how shredded you are, how wealthy you are, how successful you are, how many cars you have. If your inner emotional state is suffering, you are losing. And when your inner emotional state is at peace and focused on service, it doesn't have to be changing the world, but service to the people in your life, that's when you are successful. I think something that I learned from you is like we should always be learning. We should always be learning from everyone. We should always be learning from ourselves on what's working, what's not working. And we should always be seeking different ways to learn, whether it be like, I'm going to listen to something new that I wouldn't normally do. I'm going to read a chapter in a book that I normally wouldn't read. I'm going to go schedule a meeting with someone that I normally is not in my industry. Yeah. And I think if we can learn in those ways, we're always going to be full of life. It's when we stop learning and start thinking we have it all figured out in our space or in our life and relationships, that's when we start to lose our life. But we become full of life when we have more knowledge and richness to it. So
yeah.
My main point was, most people, if you don't know how to meditate, you're basically trying to arrange the world to give you a good enough reason to recognize that the present moment is enough, right? And once you actually know how to meditate, you can sink into the present moment regardless of what else you're struggling to accomplish. And so you can sort of take the goal as the path, right? I mean, kind of emotionally and cognitively, you've already arrived in terms of your own concerns about your own well-being, and yet you know that life is also an unending series of problems to be solved, right? But we're all going to die, right? It's not there's no solution to the massive problem of impermanence, right? So we have to find some mode of being at peace with impermanence, and that's where the contemplative life comes in.
You need to understand that there's a monster in you, and he's never going to go away. I'm confident you will keep him in the corner for the rest of his life, but don't ever take an eye off him.
Yeah.
And don't ever think that just because you're better now, you're better for life. This is a constant process.
Yeah. And remembering that there's a monster in you, but you are not that monster.
That's right. Yeah. He's over in the corner, and you are the one in charge of whether he stays in that corner.
pleasure and success and those things. Yeah. And I know I have to watch this with me when things are going really well. I'm like, aha, this, as I said, this is the me. This is as it should be. And you can just sustain this. And if it goes below this, that's a debit. But it should always be this side. And it's just not fair to ourselves or anyone else, because either we're going to create our own crisis for ourselves, or the world's going to give us one that we didn't ask for, and we're going to have to adapt to something and be beneath that mean again. And it's good to have a little map, if you can, of, wait, where was I? Where was my head? Where was my heart? How aligned were they in the decisions and choices I was making when I felt like life was one big green light? And you can go back and you can see how you can engineer them by our habits.
I'm 54, and it's taken me a long time to figure out that I was actually not a happy person. And I don't think I really truly understood what happiness is. And maybe I'm using the wrong word. Maybe the word is the problem, because I always associated happiness with like parties and laughter, and like I'm just like full of joy, and I just, you know, it's like this very positive thing. And again, I am a positive person. I'm a very optimistic person. But if you were to put a speaker on my head and broadcast the things I said to myself, you would literally check me in to the 7th floor at Mass General Hospital in Boston, Massachusetts, because it was a constant drumbeat of negativity. And as I, one by one, Jay, started to fix the problems in my marriage and my finances, with my anxiety, as I built a business, you know, a lot of people are surprised to learn that most of what you see that I've built has been built in the last 6 years.
Everybody's different, but I would say, you know, it sounds maybe obvious, but the fundamental things that keep us healthy and keep us living long are really quite simple. And you know, there was a study many years ago by James Fries, who he published in the New England Journal of Medicine, where he looked at what he called the compression of morbidity, the idea that we could have our health span equal our lifespan. Most of us spend the last 20% of our lives sick. Right, so you might live to 80, but the last 20% of your life, maybe 20 years or a little bit less, you're going to be unwell. That's not fun. And he found if you just kept your ideal body weight, if you exercised and you didn't smoke, you'd live a long, healthy life, and you would die quickly, painlessly, and cheaply. But if you didn't, you would die long, expensive, painful deaths at early. Right. So I think, where do people start? I think they start with the very foundational basics of self-care, which is food and exercise and stress reduction tools like you have in Calm, where you teach people 7-minute meditations. You don't have to go to a monastery like you did for 3 years. You know? You can learn how to increase your sleep quality. These are really foundational, basic things that everybody needs to know how to do. And there's little differences for everybody, but the food stuff is really pretty straightforward. Eat real food. If it's basically grown in a plant, eat it. If it's made in a plant, stay away from it.
I got a lot more appreciation after life was almost gone, right? Like, do you really appreciate your toes? Do you really appreciate your fingers? Like, do you really think about your movement, your joints, vision, smell? Do you really think about how fortunate and lucky you are? It's the only time where I get where I slow up, right? And when I'm slowing up, it's because the reality of that was significant. I really almost died. My kids and all that, like, what? As I'm moving so fast, I didn't even have everything dialed up for if said thing were to happen. What? Oh, because I'm out here. I'm just roaming. I'm out here aimlessly living, and I'm moving so fast. I've yet to grasp the true concept and reality of responsibility. Immediately, let me get my responsibilities in order.